All right, what's going on, big dogs? So today I wanted to do a little bit of a different video. While you guys are seeing this, I'm actually gonna be back home with my family. I gotta go back home and help out with some work. So I wanted to just kind of make a couple of videos that are more something I've wanted to do for a while. I just didn't know when to put them in or when to actually go over them and decide to actually do these videos. So obviously today's video is going to be my top 5 favorite video games of all time. Just a quick preface though, before we actually dive into my top 5. Just a couple ground rules. First and foremost, I'm not going to put anything on here I haven't played or haven't finished yet. Obviously, that would be unfair to the games that I have finished. If I was just like, oh, look how cool that game's going to be. It just wouldn't work out. There's not a lot of top games that I haven't played yet, but a few notable ones are both of the God of War series games, the 2 new ones for PS4, PS5. I have played them. I just haven't beaten them. I don't own a PS4 or PS5, so when I'm back home, I'll probably play them. Again, my brother has a PS5, so me and him will play those from time to time, but I'm actually just more of a fan of the original trilogy of the God of War series. So these new ones to me are just kind of an RPG with God of War themed stuff in it. To me, it's nothing crazy. They're great games from what I've played, but personally for me, they're not in my top 5. But that's just kind of an example of games that I just haven't finished yet. I don't want to put them on the list if I haven't gotten the time to actually sit down, play them, go through them yet. But before we start the top 5 here, I'm going to go ahead and give a quick honorable mention to Baldur's Gate 3. So I know a lot of people absolutely love this game. I absolutely love this game. It's probably like my number 6, number 7, somewhere in there. It's one of the most fun games I've ever played. The only thing that kind of keeps it out of my top 5 for me personally is really that I'm not a big turn-based fan. And I know that's a big knock for a lot of people, is that it's turn-based. I gave it a shot. I'm telling you guys, it's totally worth it. It's one of the greatest games I've ever played. Again, not in my top 5, but it's definitely really close. Phenomenal game. I've spent hundreds of hours in this game now. I've been playing it nonstop on my time off here while I'm on layoff, and as long as I'm not back home helping out with the family, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring. So it's been a wonderful game. Highly recommend it. But let's actually dive into my top 5. So starting in at number 5, and it is going to be the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. The one that came out in 2005, you can still get it on Steam. It is one of my favorite games ever for a reason. The story is amazing. It lets you play as a stormtrooper in the 501st, and it kind of takes you through all of the Star Wars movies, but from kind of a behind the scenes almost. You're a stormtrooper, you're kind of just taking orders and doing what you're supposed to do. It kind of goes into depths on like Order 66 and all the lore and just questions you kind of have about the series from a stormtrooper perspective. It gives it to you. The story's phenomenal. It does let you play as a Jedi or a Sith Lord from time to time, but nothing crazy. Like, it's not like you get to just be overpowered as can be forever. You do eventually have to go back to being a stormtrooper, and you do have to use a little bit more tactic, a little bit more strategy in certain cases. And of course, you can't forget about, probably in my opinion, the best game mode ever created, which was Galactic Conquest. From the amazing space battles to getting money, to earning money that you gain from winning and losing combats. If you met with another person's ship over a planet, you would have to do a space battle first, and then it would immediately take you to an invasion of the planet where you would actually decide who got control of that planet. Just one of the greatest games ever played. I highly recommend it if you guys haven't tried it out. It's on Steam. It's like $10. And the fan base is actually still pretty active. You can actually still probably get into a couple online lobbies where there aren't a lot of hackers or anything like that. Most people are pretty good in the game about not cheating online. So it's a pretty small community now, but it's still one of the greatest games I've ever played. All right, guys. So then coming in at the number 4 spot is actually going to be one of my favorite Call of Duty games ever. So I know it's a little weird to have a Call of Duty game in a top 5, but Call of Duty Black Ops 2, man. Black Ops 2 was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had with a game. It just felt like the Call of Duty series at this time was, Modern Warfare 2 was really good, and Black Ops 1 was phenomenal, but it always just seemed like those games were like 9s or 8s out of 10s, right? Like, they were really, really good, and they were just on the cusp of being perfect. And Black Ops 2 just kind of took the best of everything and threw it into one game. The story was really good, although it wasn't the greatest campaign in Call of Duty history. It was still top tier. Zombies was absolutely phenomenal, one of the funnest I've ever played. We can't forget about Origins. That's where that was from. One of the best maps, if not the best map in Call of Duty Zombies history. Obviously, Transit was on there, which isn't the greatest map ever, but I still had a good time with it. The concept was unique and it was still interesting. Die Rise is one of my favorite maps. That's also kind of controversial, but I love that map. And I can't forget about Buried. It's a super easy map, but it's super, super fun, super detailed, really fun to play. And then the multiplayer was just out of this world. None of the weapons felt like they were too overtuned. None of them felt like you couldn't use them to level them up. It was the first game I actually unlocked like all the diamond camos and then the black matter, I think is what it was called, or dark matter. And I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite games ever. I couldn't wait to get home from school and play the crap out of that game. It was 10 out of 10 in my book. All right, guys, coming in at number 3 for me is going to be another Call of Duty title, but hear me out on this one. This is an older one. It's one of my favorites. It just holds a dear spot in my heart from my childhood. And when I go home, I still have my PlayStation 2 and I still play this game from time to time. It is Call of Duty 2, the Big Red One. Now, I didn't play a ton of the multiplayer. The story for it is just so in-depth. It makes you really feel for the characters. It's one of those games that I just can't stop replaying. And I highly recommend if somebody hasn't played it, if you guys haven't heard of it or played it at all, it's so fun. It's older, don't get me wrong. The graphics aren't going to hold up, but just going back, you know, from time to time, whenever I have to go home and work and stuff, it is so fun to just go back after a long day of work or something and just sit down and unwind with this super in-depth, fun campaign. I know the campaign inside and out. I don't want to spoil it too much, but basically you're a private in this squad of Marines, and you slowly become kind of the leader of the group as, you know, tragedy after tragedy happens. But it's like it's almost like they took Saving Private Ryan, which is my favorite movie of all time, just to let you know, and they just turned it into a game. It's super sad, super in-depth. You really care for every character that's in the game with you. It's just one of the best written games I've played. And like I said, I still go back and play it constantly to this day. But coming in at my number 2 spot, guys, Dark Souls 3. I'm a huge Souls fans game. They are my favorite franchise I've ever played. Just the grittiness, the toughness, the no hand holding. I'm a big fan of that. I obviously appreciate just a good story driven game as well. But the way Dark Souls just captivates me with the amazing scenery, the amazing enemies, the arenas that you fight these massive bosses in are just incredible. And Dark Souls 3 just takes all of that and puts it into one amazing game. It is so fun to play and go back and play through again and again and again. It's actually one of the few Dark Souls games that I didn't play right away. I bought it on release and I just never played it. It just sat on my PC and I just never touched it. I don't know why. I just never did. And then when I finally went to college, I was like, oh yeah, I have this game, and I just couldn't stop playing it. I have a few hundred hours in it at this point. I still go back to it from time to time, although right now Elden Ring's been my big kick, but it's just one of my favorite games ever. The final boss with the Lord of Cinder is just phenomenal. The arena is gorgeous. When you finally take him out, it's just like this amazing conclusion to one of the greatest franchises ever created. And don't even get me started on the DLC with the game. Absolutely phenomenal. Fighting Gale at the very end almost brought tears to me. Like I almost cried. Like finishing that boss fight after like 100 tries and just getting my ass kicked by that guy. Oh my god, it was so fun, so gorgeous, so like well put together. Just a phenomenal game all around. 10 out of 10 in my book. All right, guys, and then coming in at my number 1 favorite game of all time. This one might be a little controversial because it's a little newer. I am a Souls fan, but it has to be Elden Ring. I know I had Baldur's Gate 3 outside the top 5. Please don't hate me for that, but just let me explain. Again, like I stated, I'm not a big fan of turn-based combat. Baldur's Gate 3 has done everything you could ask for in a game. I just don't like turn-based combat as much. Elden Ring is just such a gorgeous game. There is so much to do. I have played so much of this game and I haven't even touched the surface of what you can do. There are so many items to loot, so many bosses to fight, so many secret dungeons to get into, secret passageways. You don't even have to fight like over half the bosses if you don't want to beat the game. Like every playthrough I do is just a new baffling experience that just makes me just go, what the hell? It's almost like every time I replay it or every time I do a new game plus, there's just something new that I haven't experienced yet. It's such a good game. The open world is incredible. It runs great, which is very rare nowadays. The quests on the side are phenomenal, and it just feels like an RPG that you can just get lost in. There's times that I find myself just running around, slaying enemies for no reason. I'm just trying to find cool things, and I just get lost in the world. It's one of the coolest, most well put together games I've ever played. I held off on playing it for almost a whole year at this point. And once I finally caved and bought it, because I was a little nervous with everybody hyping it up that maybe it got too easy and a bunch of non-Souls fans are now able to play it. But then I played it And I realized that people aren't playing it because it's easy or because Souls isn't like Souls-like anymore. It's still hard. It's still a Souls game. It's still ridiculously hard, but the ability to just get lost in the world has captivated so many people. It's been great to see that From Software is like just continues to raise the bar for video games as a whole. And I could not be happier with Elden Ring. It's been easily my favorite game ever for the last couple of months. And so I might be a little biased on it, but I just don't see this game coming down anytime soon. Like, it's going to have to take a miracle from God himself to produce a better game than this, in my mind. But anyways, guys, that is all I got for you. If you guys did enjoy this video, remember, please leave a like, comment, and of course subscribe. Let me know down below what you would have put on the list, or other games that you think maybe I should give a try out and maybe they'd end up on my list. I don't know. Let me know down below. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate all the support. And until the next video, guys, Godspeed.